Hello everyone. If you have been following our research, you will see how the decodings of sacred geometries, mandalas, scriptures, the Nazca lines, geoglyphs, petroglyphs, hieroglyphs, the Book of Enoch, various cultures and belief systems, the research of real-world data, those halos in the sky, earthquake data, the mimic map, and much more decode into a technological and mechanical realm, a construct of vast magnitude and magnificence, described and depicted everywhere in our history, the same story of the underworld, the heavens and their workings, repeated over and over no matter where you look, a history and knowledge we seem to have forgot, pieces of a jigsaw that slot together into one amazing construct and conclusion. There is a creator. In this video we are going to take you deeper into how the luminaries work, show you what those halos in the sky really are, and cross-reference various related sites in the world. I'll now hand you over to One Conscience.
Hello, so today let's discuss the volcanoes again. And as we've said before, the volcanoes are the waste and recycle system of our world. They're the vents to the underworld. Some ancients used to refer to these as their gods. They would even drop offerings like gold, and there were tales of animal sacrifice. That's true. Nowadays they still leave offerings like leaves, vegetables, incense, candles, crystals are some of the offerings that people still do. So let's talk about a dirty thunderstorm. I hadn't heard of it before, so it was new to me, but I'm going to share some interesting stuff about it. A dirty thunderstorm is also known as volcanic lightning. It is a weather phenomenon that is related to the production of lightning in a volcanic plume. Well, how does that occur? Triboelectric charging from fragmentation of rocks near the vent and within the plume of a volcano during eruption offers another mechanism for electrical charging. A study in the journal Science indicated that electrical charges are generated when rock fragments, ash, and ice particles in a volcanic plume collide and produce static charges, just as ice particles collide in regular thunderstorms. Volcanic eruptions are sometimes accompanied by flashes of lightning. However, this lightning does not descend from the storm clouds in the sky. It is generated within the ash cloud spewing from the volcano in a process called charge separation. So, what's charge separation? It is the process of an electron in the atom being excited to a higher energy level by the absorption of a photon and then leaving the atom to a nearby electron acceptor. This is what happens at the CERN facility, specifically relative to the reaction plane in PB collisions in the Alice reactor. With different plumes studied, when they started going downwind, it seemed to have a life of its own and produced some 300 lightning bolts. The implication was that it had produced more charge than it started with. A study performed in 2010 found that the water content of volcanic plumes is much greater than the water content of thunderstorms. The study also found that there may be a needed amount of concentration required in a plume for lightning to occur. Naturally occurring radioisotopes within ejected rock particles may cause self-charging of volcanic plumes. So what are radioisotopes? They're any of several species of the same chemical element with different masses whose nuclei are unstable and dissipate excess energy by spontaneously emitting radiation in the form of alpha, beta, and gamma rays. During an eruption, a large amount of fragmented subsurface rock is ejected into the atmosphere. A study conducted on volcanic ash from Iceland volcanic eruptions found that both samples possessed a natural radioactivity above the background level. At CERN, the same process is used in the Isolid radioactive ion beam facility, located at the Proton Synchrotron Booster, the PSB. The physicists investigate the structure of the nucleus. They explore new regions of the nucleus chart and study the abundance of chemical elements in the universe. They are currently aiming to expand from its core low energy science to a high energy, and they say that's nearly complete. Currently, Isolid takes half of the protons produced at CERN from the PSB and fires them into a target to produce radioactive isotopes. This is the same process I'm talking about with volcanoes. So, back to the volcanoes. The height of the ash plume appears to be linked with the mechanism which generates the lightning. The taller the plume, it appears that the larger concentration of water vapor are contributing to lightning activity, while the smaller plumes appear to gain more of their electrical charge from the fragmentation of rocks near the vents of the volcano through charge separation. The atmospheric temperature also plays a role in the formation of lightning. Colder temperatures will create greater amounts of ice inside the plume, thus leading to more friction and electrical activity. In a study presented in the Bulletin of Volcanology in 2010, it was stated that more eruptions with lightning were reported in winter than in summer. This finding indicates that the lightning activity is driven by magma-derived water rather than atmospheric water. It has been suggested that a byproduct of volcanic lightning are lightning-induced volcanic spherules. These small glass spherules are thought to be formed during high-temperature processes, such as cloud-to-ground lightning strikes. The temperature of a bolt of volcanic lightning can reach 30,000 degrees Celsius. When this bolt contacts ash particles within the plume, it will cause them to melt and then quickly solidify as they cool, forming orb shapes. The presence of volcanic spherules aids in providing evidence for the occurrence of volcanic lightning directly. So, let's take a moment and relate this to our grid and our map and try to simplify it a bit for people to understand. So, to do that, I decided to place these volcanoes on the map with the grid overlay so we can see why this happens. So here, we can see that these fall, a lot of them directly on the grid. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and it made me want to, look a little further and try to be able to show you guys the cause. So then I compared it to particle accelerators. Okay, so in this next picture, you're seeing the two of them compared side by side. And I've also circled the areas where there are accelerators and wanted to show how on each side there are these volcanic vents. So that's about all I have. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over for a technical breakdown and decoding of all of this information by FPV. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, One. As promised, we are going to decode how the luminaries work and give you their modern and ancient terminology, and show you how we make these connections and how it relates to technology, the workings of the luminaries, and of course the workings of the realm. These are halos various people have recorded of what mainstream calls sundogs. We decode them as something very different and special. As you can notice with time-lapse photography, the halo moves with the sun. It has very obvious rotation as it moves, which suggests the luminary projectors are not only moving in the underworld, but are also revolving as they go. This we have linked before to the Antikytherian mechanism's movements, the ancient computer that can predict all our major luminaries' movements and even the past, present and future lunar cycles with amazing precision. A hand-cranked computer from an era in our past. It appears our luminary projectors are doing the very same movements in the underworld. This research is also backed up by Ptolemy's use of epicycles. Ptolemy clearly factored in the luminary projectors' movements, meaning the ancients knew very well how this technology works and understood what is happening in the underworld. This is also very evident in Geopetron hieroglyphs, scriptures and even the Book of Enoch. We all understood how our world worked, and our kings, queens, tribal chiefs and elders took great pride in depicting this knowledge everywhere. Now we are going to decode and break down what we are really looking at. In this animation we will use the sun halo and its 8 nodes and show you what it really is, and take you through these conclusions using a modern equivalent as a reference. As you can see, we have a wheel in a wheel, which we can reference with Ezekiel's description of what he saw at the East Gate. The ancient terminology I may have to go deeper with in another video with Santos Panacci, but for now here is a simple decode which uses modern and ancient terminology. Decoding Node 1. This is Wonderland. This is where the magic happens. The modern terminology for this node is Atlas. The ancient terminology would be Brahma the Creator. Our smaller halo is where our sun's image and high luminosity come from. Decoding Node 2. Modern terminology Alice. This is where wave injection seems to take place. Its ancient terminology would be Rudra. Decoding Node 3. Modern terminology points 3.2 and 3.3. This is where a cleaning cycle takes place called momentum cleaning. Ancient terminology Mahadeva. Decoding Node 4. Modern terminology Point 4 or future RF experiments. Ancient terminology Sankara. Decoding Node 5. Modern terminology Point 5 or CMS. Ancient terminology Vishnu, a mirror of Brahma, hence it being a high luminosity point directly opposite Node 1. Decoding Node 6. Modern terminology Point 6. This is a beam dump cycle. Ancient terminology Sambhu. Decoding Node 7. Modern terminology Point 7. This is Betatron cleaning cycle. Ancient terminology Isvara. Decoding Node 8. Modern terminology Point 8 or LHC Beauty. Ancient terminology Mahesara. In conjunction with all these processes, Shiva or Satan is created at the center of our small halo. This is our sun's generated and projected image. The other functions dealing with frequency and wave injection, as well as cleaning and beam dump cycles, as we have illustrated previously in our 12 gates video, where the solar boat, as the Egyptians called it, went through various cleaning cycles and solar rejuvenation, then returned via 12 chakras back to the east gates in the underworld. As above, so below is directly related to these processes ongoing in our underworld. What you see in the heavens are also being played out in the underworld, the luminary projections matching the movements of their physical models in the underworld. Do we have anything we can reference any of this to? Yes, of course. Here are some of One Conscience's line tracings from the ocean floor in Google Earth. As you can see, these actually match some of the sections we have seen on the Sun projector, only on a larger scale, and they match segments of the 6 larger halos you see over our grid. In this fantastic clip captured by One Conscience, we are going to break down what she is recording. As you can see, we have no date visible on the right. This is Beauty or Maheswara. The reason you are seeing it with this type of elongated profile is because you are viewing part of the projector from a side perspective, which shows some of the scale of this projector's node and its contents. When viewed from below, we usually see a white or cloud coloured node. The complete projection of the halo would look like this if we could see all the parts of it clearly. You can now see how epicycles work and get an idea of what is moving around below us. The electromagnetic projections in the sky is mimicking their every move. I'm going to hand over to One Conscience now for more related decodings.
Okay, so let's look at these different maps and then compare them all at the end. All of this information, when you look at it together, it just tells a really big story. So first, here's the volcanoes that we looked at. So I won't go too much into detail in those because we just talked about those for a minute. The second one that I want you to see, though, is the particle accelerators of the world. So when you look at these particle accelerators compared to the map I just showed you of volcanoes, the volcanoes are on the outskirts of these accelerators, confirming that they are the waste system of all this stuff going on. Okay? Alright, so next, we'll look at CO2 sites and nuclear sites. Okay, so what I'm seeing here is these guys are wrapping around or opposite of our major accelerator sites. Okay, so the CO2 is probably cooling all of this stuff that they've got going on with these accelerators. You know, and again, if these accelerators were already there or if man has put them there, you know, that's kind of up for research. But what I see is they're cooling this stuff, and then the nuclear sites, they're harvesting this energy. Okay. And the last one we'll take a peek at is deep borehole projects. So again, these are all basically in the same areas. So they're digging down and putting the CO2 in, or harvesting, or trying to get to this technology to reverse engineer it. And then the last map I'll show you here is one that I put everything all onto one map so we can look at our story of what's going on. So everything that I was just saying in each individual map, now you can see it all wrapped together, and it's kind of working like I said. They've got the accelerators and they've put them over our, they're on the grid and on these power points. Everything just kind of correlates and tells a big story here. So if they're doing all this, it makes you wonder, what are they doing at our 12 gates? Do your own research, and I'll leave you with that thought.
Check this Hindu mandala overlay out, people. Notice how the rubies align right in between angels, and the other 4 are the cardinal points on the grid of the Nazca mandala. These 2 mandalas are telling the same story as the others. Regarding the projectors, all their base functions and systems apply regardless of size or scale. Some are projectors, many are not. They all need cleaning cycles and beam dumps. Notice the beam dump would be going towards the Bering Strait region on a realm scale model. What you are looking at here is Saturn. Saturn is probably the realm's largest accelerator. Its cleaning cycles clearly being along the equator, hence the flow of red on the mimic map. This is the lake of fire in the underworld. The creation processes taking care of the harnessed elements Scripture calls hot coals. They are produced from the eyes around about it on each accelerator as described by Ezekiel. The whole process working in harmony on a scale we can barely comprehend. The Saturn accelerator has some very interesting traits. Notice the star in the north. This may be Polaris. If we can confirm there are 3 fixed location stars in the south that match these alignments on this overlay, this would help prove this model further. The star in the north may very well be related to the Aurora Borealis events alongside some of the Nazca line overlays we have previously used to fit into this model as blueprint overlays. I'll now hand you back over to Unconscious so she can do another presentation of some other interesting information she's been looking into.
Okay, so exposure to electromagnetic field is not a new phenomenon. However, exposure to man-made electromagnetic fields has been steadily increasing because growing electricity demands, advancing technologies, and change in our different behaviors have created more and more artificial resources for electromagnetic fields. Everyone is exposed to a complex mix of weak electric and magnetic fields at home, at work, from the generation and transmission of electricity, appliances, industrial equipment, telecommunications, and different broadcasting. So, there's tiny electrical currents that exist in the human body due to a chemical reaction that occurs as part of the normal body functions, even in the absence of external electric fields. So, for example, nerves relay signals by transmitting electric pulses. Most biochemical reactions, from digestion to brain activities, go along with the rearrangement of charged particles. Low-frequency electric fields influence the human body just as they influence any other material made up of charged particles. When electric fields act on conductive materials, they influence the distribution of electric charges at the surface. They cause current to flow through the body to the ground. So, low-frequency magnetic fields induce circulating currents within the human body. The strength of these currents depend on the intensity of the outside magnetic field. If sufficiently large, these currents could cause stimulation of nerves and muscles or affect other biological processes. Some members of the public have attributed a diffuse collection of symptoms to low-level exposure to electromagnetic fields at home. They've reported the symptoms, and they include headaches, anxiety, suicide, depression, nausea, fatigue, loss of libido. Also, general eye irritation and cataracts have been reported in workers exposed to high levels of radio frequency and microwave radiation. Some individuals report hypersensitivity to electric or magnetic fields. They ask whether aches and pains, headaches, depression, lethargy, sleeping disorders, and all the way up to convulsions and seizures could be related. So, now let's shift our focus towards ghosts. So, spirit effects and sensations that people feel or see when a spirit energy is around, or what people think a spirit energy is. Okay, some of the sensations that people have reported are electrical interference, shadows, different temperatures and temperature changes, feelings of anxiety, odd odors, objects that levitate, seeing different orbs, colored or of white transparent light. Animals seem sensitive. Okay. People have also reported that they have overwhelming feelings of sadness, desires to commit suicide. Let's not forget about that forest in Japan where people actually travel to it to commit suicide. Also, people report from entities not being able to sleep, having body aches when they wake up, with a feeling of being beat up. So, when we look at both of those lists and we compare the effects of these two subjects, we can see several similarities in the things reported. So what I'm proposing is that a lot of these hauntings are related to our energy grid that is undersurface. Okay? So when we place different haunted areas on the map, we see a definite correlation. So a lot of these areas are around our angels and on or right next to the grid. So the energy from the angels travel the grid, and the areas around it are receiving energies that are higher than the normal background. So we feel this energy. Different areas would affect us more or less in different ways depending on the frequency that's being emitted. An example is what someone may call a malevolent spirit or demon would go off a very, very low frequency. It would affect us in a very negative way. It can make us very ill, physically or mentally. And then we do have other areas that, even though they're considered haunted, people feel really good or calm when they're there. They feel like it's a very loving entity, they call it. So that entity could definitely be of a higher frequency. That angel energy could be of a more positive frequency, a higher vibration, and it would affect us differently. But what I can see is that these haunted areas sit more or less on our grid or right around it. So that's just what I wanted to talk about, was maybe these hauntings are just very, very strong electromagnetic fields that we just can't understand the size of these things. And that would make sense why entire areas seem to have a whole lot of hauntings going on. So it's just something to think about, and have a good day.
This is a bonus clip, a decoding of the CERN ceremony, so you can see how we decode things. In this scene, the train represents the solar boat we have covered in the 12 Gates presentation. The characters in orange representing the harnessed radioactively charged elements. In this scene you can see the characters in orange, the radioactively charged elements, climbing up to the halos, obviously representing the halos in the sky, in other words powering this technology, as well as this technology actually creating these kind of elements. Very clever technology. In this scene, this one should be familiar. If you remember in the 12 Gates presentation, the solar rejuvenation. The rejuvenation of the energy required for the sun projector. So it's a cycle of harnessing and making use of the usable materials that it's harnessed. This is a very easy one. This is the bubbling lake of fire. In this one, the scarab beetle represents the projection, the physical transformation between the projector and the projection. You will also see the antikythera mechanism on display. Also in the background, the industrial revolution that man has achieved from the knowledge of these technologies, as man does what man does best: reverse engineer and adapt. And of course the eyes round about it, as described by Ezekiel. This is a Shiva bonus clip. This is Shiva standing in the very obvious particle accelerator, the flames representing the hot coals, the harnessed elements converted into matter, radioactive matter of considerably high voltages, a free energy or 100% over unity power source, the child at the bottom representing birth, the creation of the projection or hot coals depending on its configuration. I'll now hand you over to VIN Takin Pics Kathleen for some relevant research into our Milky Way.
Earth god Geb and his twin and lover Nut, the Egyptian sky goddess, separated with air by Re. Her eyes were the sun and the moon, and the milk from her udder made the Milky Way. The sun was born every morning to this cow as a calf, journeying towards the west. Romulus and Remus from Roman times are the twin sons of Mars. They represent the lake of fire below. The radioactive lake of fire, basically from all the angels that produced hot coals from the eyes round about the accelerator. Ezekiel tried to describe the wheel in a wheel. The Mayans say they come out to show us the map of the underworld. The stars, etc., are the map to the underworld. The Milky Way represents the equator. The hot flow you see on the mimic map is the lake of fire going east to west. It even has what they call a nuclear bulge. Radioactive Romulus and Remus feed off the she-wolf, the radioactive lake. Romulus and Remus are probably the sun and moon, fed by the same energy, radioactive material. The hot coals from Scripture, aside from the wandering stars, the rest of the map of the underworld. As above, so below.
As you can see, people, our research is revealing a very intelligent creator who has created a realm which can only be described as a technological masterpiece, a construct beyond our comprehension, as our ancestors found and tried their best to describe. You will also notice we are decoding geoglyphs, petroglyphs and hieroglyphs. The reason for that is because they are telling the exact same story, the only difference being the descriptions of the angels, and this is due to their varying roles and different looks in different geographic locations. They are still part of the same mechanisms that give us our luminaries and a great many other things. A construct designed and maintained to the highest standard with the most ornate descriptions one can possibly imagine. We hope you enjoy our research and information, and that it helps you see and recognize there is a creator, their glory being revealed in a way we did not expect to see, let alone find. We fully accept this and look upon our realm with new eyes and knowledge, a knowledge that seems to have been lost, yet is depicted everywhere in sacred geometry, scriptures, geoglyphs, petroglyphs and hieroglyphs. How did it come to be that we have forgotten all that was once known everywhere in our realm? I'll leave you with that thought, so until next time, it's goodbye from us.